In a world full of noise, truth still has a foundation. Welcome to True Foundations. Before the flood came the water. The earth was already drowning, not in rain, not in judgment, but in something darker. Corruption and violence had filled the earth. Truth had been inverted. Boundaries, sacred boundaries between heaven and earth, had been crossed in ways that Scripture does not explain away or soften. And beneath it all, something was operating in the unseen realm that most of us have never been taught. Genesis 6 is not a children's story. It is one of the most theologically dense, spiritually urgent, and mysteriously overlooked chapters in all of the Tanakh. And it does not stand alone. What happens in Genesis 6 is the second movement in a three-part pattern of rebellion that runs from Eden to the flood to Babel. 3 rebellions, each one escalating, each one provoking a divine response, and running through every dark chapter like a single thread of gold through a fractured world, the faithfulness of Adonai. Here, we go into the world before the flood. We will not look away from what Scripture actually says, and we will not leave without finding the mercy hidden inside the judgment. Because Genesis 6 was never only about the past. Yeshua himself pointed to it as a mirror for our own age. Let's begin.
The man named Rest.
In our last episode, we ended with a name, Noach. His father Lamech gave him this name and said, "This one will comfort us from our work and from the toil of our hands, because of the ground which Adonai has cursed." Genesis 5:29. Noach. Rest, comfort, relief. He was born into a world groaning under the weight of the curse, and his very name was a prophecy that something was about to change. But to understand what Noach was born into, we have to understand the world around him, because it was not simply a difficult world. It was a world in the grip of something ancient, something that began long before Noach was born. It began in a garden. The fracture that spread. In the beginning, creation was ordered, sacred. Humanity walked with Adonai in the garden, in the cool of the day, face to face, without shame. Shalom was not an ideal. It was the condition of existence. But then came the question, did God really say? And with that question, the first rebellion began. Not with force, not with power, with distortion. Adam and Hava did not simply break a rule, they crossed a boundary between creature and creator, between trust and autonomy, between receiving life as a gift and grasping it as a right. The fracture that followed was not contained. It moved outward, into marriage, into family, into the ground itself. And within one generation, that fracture became blood. Cain, Hevel, brother against brother. The first murder. And before Cain killed his brother, Adonai spoke to him with an urgency we should not overlook. Sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you. You must rule over it. Genesis 4:7. Cain did not rule over it. And the fracture deepened. Generation after generation, the line of Cain built cities and built violence into the foundations of civilization. By the time we arrive at Genesis 6, Moses does not ease us into what he is about to say. Adonai saw that the wickedness of humankind was great on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their heart was only evil all the time. Genesis 6:5. Every inclination, only evil all the time.
This is not ordinary brokenness. Something far darker had taken hold, and Genesis 6 is about to tell us why.
The unseen realm. To understand Genesis 6, we first have to understand something that the ancient world understood and that we have largely lost. The world of Scripture is not a flat world. It is a layered world, visible and invisible, physical and spiritual, human and divine. There is a realm that operates behind and beneath what we can see. Job called it the divine council, the sons of God presenting themselves before Adonai. The Psalms speak of it. God takes his stand in the divine assembly. He judges among the divine beings. Psalm 82:1. And Deuteronomy, in a passage that most translations flatten, reveals that Adonai assigned the nations of the earth to the oversight of divine beings. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. Deuteronomy 32:8. This is the framework that the late Michael Heiser, in his groundbreaking work, The Unseen Realm, calls the divine council worldview. It is not mythology. It is the biblical author's actual cosmology, a world in which Adonai governs through a hierarchy of spiritual beings, and in which some of those beings chose to rebel. With this framework in view, Genesis 6 becomes not stranger, but clearer.
The second rebellion, B'nai Ha-Elohim. Now it came about when humankind began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. So they took wives for themselves from all whom they chose. Genesis 6:1-2. The sons of God. In Hebrew, B'nai Ha-Elohim. This is not a reference to godly men marrying ungodly women. The phrase B'nai Ha-Elohim appears only a handful of times in all of Scripture, and every other time it appears, it refers without question to divine beings. In Job 1 and 2, divine beings presenting before Adonai. In Job 38, these same beings shouting for joy at creation. The ancient readers of this text, Jewish readers, long before the New Covenant was written, understood Genesis 6:1-4 as describing a transgression by divine beings, not a metaphor, a crossing of boundaries, heaven trespassing into earth in direct defiance of Adonai's order. The book of 1 Enoch, not scripture, but an ancient Jewish text deeply embedded in Second Temple tradition, developed this narrative in detail, calling these beings the Watchers, and the Brit Hadashah does not ignore it. Yehuda, Jude, writes, "And the angels who did not keep their own domain, but abandoned their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains in utter darkness for the judgment of the great day." Kepha, Peter, confirms it. God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into the lowest hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment. The transgression of Genesis 6 was cosmic in scale. It was the second rebellion. Heaven refusing its own boundaries, spiritual authority turned against the God who granted it. And from this union, the Nephilim.
Before we go further, if what you're hearing is opening something up for you, take a moment to like this video. It's a simple thing, but it helps this teaching reach people who are searching for exactly this. You can also subscribe so you never miss a deep dive. We're glad you're here. Now, let's continue.
The Nephilim, the fallen ones. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men of old, men of renown, Nephilim. From the root Nephal, to fall. The fallen ones, or those caused to fall. The Hebrew word carries weight in every direction. These were not simply large human beings. In the framework of the ancient world, they were the corrupted offspring of a corrupted union, symbols of everything that happens when divine order is violated. The ancient Jewish book of 1 Enoch describes their hunger, their violence, their devouring. And while Enoch is not scripture, it preserves the tradition that scripture itself references. Moses is not asking us to disbelieve the supernatural. He is asking us to understand that the crisis before the flood was not merely social. It was not merely moral. It was spiritual corruption operating at the level of creation itself. This is why the wickedness of humanity became so total, so all-consuming, so impossible to contain by ordinary means. The earth itself was corrupted. The earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was full of violence. Violence, Hamas in Hebrew, the same word used centuries later to describe the injustice that cried out for judgment. The world before the flood had become unrecognizable from what Adonai had intended, and Adonai grieved.
The grief of God. There is a verse in Genesis 6 that we rush past, and we should not. Adonai regretted that he had made humankind on the earth, and his heart was deeply grieved. The grief of God. This is not weakness. This is not confusion. This is the response of a creator who made humanity for intimacy, for walking in the garden, for bearing his image, for ruling creation with wisdom and care, watching what he made for love descend into violence. His heart was deeply grieved. The word in Hebrew carries the weight of pain, an ache that goes to the core, and from that grief came a decision, not one made in anger alone, one made with mercy already moving inside it. Because before Genesis 6 pronounces judgment, it names the one man who will carry the covenant forward. Noach, grace in a dark world. But Noach found favor in the eyes of Adonai. That word, favor, in Hebrew, chen, grace. Noach found grace, not because he was perfect, not because his world had not touched him, but because in the middle of the most corrupted generation in human history, he turned his face toward Adonai and did not look away. Moses tells us 3 things about Noah in one breath, and each one matters. Noah was a righteous man, tzaddik. He was blameless among his generation, tamim. Noah walked with God, whole, complete, undivided, and he walked with God. The same language used of Hanok, Enoch, 2 generations earlier, the only other man in the pre-flood world described this way, walking with God, not perfectly, not without struggle, but in the direction of Adonai consistently when everything around him ran the other way. In a world of Nephilim and violence and cosmic corruption, Noach was a remnant, one man, one family, and Adonai chose to work through that remnant to carry the story forward. This is one of the deep patterns of Scripture. Adonai does not abandon the world to its rebellion. He always preserves a remnant, always works through the few who are still turned toward him, always finds the Noach in the darkest generation. The Ark, salvation through judgment. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. Noach did not argue. He did not negotiate. He did not ask for a second opinion. So Noach did it. Just as God had commanded him, so he did. For 100 years, by the ancient reckoning, Noach built, while the world around him continued, while the Nephilim dominated, while violence filled the land. He built. And when the rains came, when the fountains of the great deep broke open, when the windows of heaven were released, the ark rose, not above the judgment,
through it. The ark did not lift Noach out of a dangerous world and carry him somewhere safe and separate. It carried him through the waters of judgment to the other side. And this is the pattern the Brit Chadashah picks up. Kepha writes about the flood and connects it directly to the salvation offered through Yeshua, the preservation of souls through judgment, not apart from it. The ark is a shadow, a foreshadowing of something greater. In Messiah Yeshua, we are not simply warned of judgment. We are invited into the ark, into the one who carries us through what would otherwise destroy us. Noach built with wood and pitch. The greater ark was built at a cross, and the door, the one door in the ark, stands open still. The waters recede, mercy after judgment. 40 days. Then the waters prevailed, 150 days of covering, until there was no high place left uncovered. And then God remembered Noach. 2 words, the most important 2 words in the flood narrative. Adonai did not forget. He never forgot. But the language of remembering in Scripture is not about mental recollection. It is about covenant action. When Adonai remembers someone, he moves towards them. He acts on their behalf. He demonstrates that the covenant still holds. And so the waters receded. The wind blew. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, and Noach sent out a dove. Then the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in its mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf, the sign of life returning to the earth. Judgment had passed. The earth was beginning again, and Noach built an altar, the first altar after the flood, and offered burnt offerings to Adonai. And Adonai established a covenant, not just with Noach, with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature. The rainbow, the sign of the Brit, Adonai's commitment that judgment of this scale would never come again. The covenant thread, running from Eden through the flood, forward into history, had not been broken. It had held. But the heart remained. Here is the hard truth that the flood reveals. The waters could cleanse the earth, but they could not change the human heart. Adonai himself acknowledges this. For the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth. The same condition that provoked the flood, the bent of the human heart toward rebellion, survived the flood. In Noach, in his sons, in their children. And it would not be long, only a handful of chapters, before humanity gathered again and did what humanity always does when it forgets who made it. They built a tower. They reached for the heavens, not to worship the one who dwells there, but to make a name for themselves. The third rebellion. Babel. The door is still open. The world before the flood is not simply ancient history. Yeshua himself told us to pay attention to it. As it was in the days of Noach, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. He was not making a point about rainfall. He was making a point about the human condition and about the pattern that repeats when humanity turns from Adonai. Violence, corruption, the spiritual and the physical entangled in rebellion. And in the middle of it, one person, one family, one remnant who walked with God. Here is the question the flood puts to every one of us. Not, are you perfect? Not, have you escaped the corruption of the age around you? But simply, which direction are you facing? Noach was not better than his generation because his generation was not capable of goodness. He was different because he turned his face toward Adonai and kept walking. Then, grace found him. And grace still finds the ones who are willing to walk in a direction that the world around them has abandoned. You do not have to build an ark, but you do have to choose which direction you are walking. And if you are watching this, if something in you is still searching, then hear this. The door of the ark is not closed. The one who carried Noach through the judgment is the same one who said, "I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he will be saved." He is the greater Noach, the righteous one, the one who walked with God when the world would not, and he invites you in. In our next episode, we step into the world after the flood, a new beginning, new ground, new covenant, new humanity, but the same ancient heart. Because the flood did not solve the problem of human rebellion, it preserved a remnant and renewed the earth. But the third and final pre-Messianic rebellion was already forming in the hearts of Noach's descendants. Babel, the tower that reached toward heaven, the city that defied the God who scattered, and the divine response that changed the shape of every nation on earth. We're going there next. Don't miss it.
Thank you for going deep with me today. If something stirred in you, question, a realization, something that shifted, I'd love to hear it. Drop it in the comments below. You might not realize it, but what you share could be exactly what someone else needed to read. If this opened something up for you, consider passing it on. Share it with someone who's been asking the hard questions. Someone who needs to know that the story of Scripture is deeper, richer, and more alive than they've been told. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We're just getting started. Until then, shalom, and keep seeking the light.